Not low stress by nature? You're in the right place. Welcome to your high vibe tribe, where I'll help you get low stress by habit. I'm your host, Nithya Karia, helping you reduce your stress, reclaim your joy, and live a life you love, all with just 5 simple habits. Today we're talking about this idea of just being able to get started. Some days we wake up and it's easy. We hit the ground running. We know what we want to do. We get things done. Other times we find ourselves in this place of kind of just looking around at all of the things that need to do, at that list that needs to get done, at the things that need to get tackled. And we don't know where to start. But here's what we know. We know that action overrides overwhelm. But taking action it isn't always that easy. So how do we make it easier? That's what we're going to talk about today. And here's my advice for you. Think small. It's easy to get wrapped up in the nuance of how to achieve maximum efficiency. But if that's your line of thinking, you might find yourself stuck or overwhelmed, and that's because you're overthinking. There is so much information out there about how to get things done in the best way or the fastest way or the more efficient way. And it's all great information, but we get to assess if information is actually serving us or if it is creating more stress, if it's actually distracting us from the thing that we need to do, which is beginning to take action. Now, if this is you and you are feeling overwhelmed or stuck and you're in this overthinking phase, there's nothing wrong with you. You just get to recognize that you're not ready for that optimization level, right? You might be looking 3 steps, 5 steps, 10 steps ahead of where you are. So where you get to do the work is you get to figure out how do you create ease. And you can do that for yourself by finding your beginning, right? Finding that place where you can start, that start somewhere idea. I recently took my children to see this beautiful exhibit. It was called Exquisite Creatures. And at the end of this long exhibit, they had a try it yourself area where you could try your hand at creating your own expression of what you just saw using magnetic versions of the insects and other creatures that the artist had used. Now, we walked in this room, and ahead of us was this large, sloppy board with magnets scattered all over it, all over the floor and the shelf next to it. Now, I watched my son and daughter take several minutes to dismantle and organize the chaos. While they were doing this, I could feel myself getting a little fidgety. The exhibit was absolutely breathtaking, but it was also pretty long. And I was reminded here of how easy it is to kind of want to rush other people along, to go at our pace, especially when they're little people. Now, I don't always have the energy reserved to check myself at this point, but this time I did. I actually took a seat and I smiled at what I witnessed. That chaotic remnants that were kind of strewn all over the place, all of those little hands that had come by before my own children's, it was slowly being sorted and organized. And my son, while he was doing this, took a sort of mental count of how many of each insect was available so he would know what he had to work with. Now, once all the pieces were in place, he really quickly began to execute his vision. And I'll be honest, when I took a look at the remains of that giant whiteboard, when we first walked in the room, the last thing I felt was inspired to create art. I looked at this thing that just looked like a huge mess, and I thought it was a kind of cool idea that they offered this, but really for me, it was a little bit overwhelming. And again, on top of just coming out of this really long exhibit, it wasn't something that I would do. But it was really, truly amazing to watch my kids figure out exactly where they needed to start to get the thing done, right? To just immediately eliminate their overwhelm. They needed to clear the space. So this is my invitation to you. Think small. So often, I think as adults, we jump into feeling like we have, read all these articles and listened to these podcasts and really, love this idea of efficiency and saving time. But sometimes we use it as a distraction tool. So as I watched my children start with just the smallest step of just clearing the board, they got physical clarity, and I think it created some mental clarity for them. Right? And so that first step was nothing glamorous, nothing monumental. It was a little bit of that grunt work, but it set them up for success. So that's my invitation, is that when you're faced with something overwhelming, when you're faced with something that you want to begin, maybe it's a habit, maybe it's a job, maybe it's a project, right? When you're stuck, start small. Can you, when you clean up that desk or office, where do you start? Do you just need to get everything out of the room and then put it back in? Can you start with one corner of your desk and kind of work your way outwards? Same thing, maybe you organize a closet or organizing a year's worth of photos, planning a weekly menu. There's so many things in our life that we feel like we just don't have the bandwidth for. But what we can really do is just break each of those tasks down to just one thing. What could I do towards this task? Because taking any action makes it easier to take that next step. And even if that action step, it doesn't seem to directly relate to your task, you can create momentum. Thinking requires so much more energy than doing. So once you have momentum, you can decide where to direct it. So if I were menu planning, or it was something that I was trying to tackle, maybe cleaning up that desk or checking off a couple things off of my to-do list for the day creates that momentum. I can then turn towards my whiteboard or my menu plan and start to figure out, what am I going to eat this week? And what's something easy? What's something fast, right? And start to create momentum step by small step by small step. Okay, that's all for this episode. Sending all my love and gratitude. Until next time, stay high vibe, my friend.